you going to TGIF or what? Oh, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain, so.
Well, we always thank God it's Friday. We thank God for every day, but we thank him particularly for Fridays. Welcome to the program. I'm Maukwe Yusuf.
Today is 20/10/23. It's a Friday morning. Welcome. I'm Ayo Makinde.
And it's a very significant date, 20/10/23. It now makes it 3 years since the anniversary of the EndSARS, a particular issue that continues to remain a quite sad dent on our recent, well, I say political history or democratic history. And we'll continue to bring you different activities that will be happening to highlight the event of the day. But then, you know, we are in a democracy, and I think that's one of the reasons why this particular event, which happened 3 years ago, continues to remain quite sad. But there are other areas that should give us reason, you know, for concern. EndSARS was about police brutality, engagement with the state's responsibility towards its citizens, and how it considers protests within the land and how it engages with this protest. Other parts of our democracy require, that require interrogation is how our democracy has been able to deliver on the expected dividends. You know, we talk about dividends, it became a cliche in the Fourth Republic, the dividends of democracy, which you hear all around. But what a number of people really wanted to see was not just a process that they could engage with every 4 years by electing their leaders, but how the leaders truly led by having a positive effect on their well-being, on their security and well-being. And I think one of such engagement is what we've recently seen in Kaduna State, where the governor of the state recently had a meeting with local government chairmen and all 225 ward chairmen in his state, on the issue of poverty. It is very sad. I think about 2 years ago, the National Bureau of Statistics released a very disturbing report that over 183 million Nigerians were living in multidimensional poverty. Now, make of it what you will, because some people said, oh, it's multidimensional means that, you know, there are different levels to this poverty. There are those who, there's poverty that is defined as living above or living below $2 a day. There is the one that's just talking about how, you know, children do not have access to playgrounds. And if you were to look at that, you know, many communities, even right here in the Federal Capital Territory, even those who think that they're living rather well off, the fact that their children do not have access to playgrounds, you know, automatically makes them poor, according to the report of the MBS. But only recently, I'm not sure what poll the Kaduna State government, did in their own state, but they found out that in rural areas, 86% of people live below the poverty line. Now, what that will mean is really unclear in terms of what metrics that they have used to measure this. But if they have taken the pains to do their own research, and the governor of the state has found out that this is a situation in his own state and has, you know, called for a meeting of leadership at different levels to discuss this, then we know that is a real problem. What will be interesting to know will be, you know, how they intend to tackle it, what Marshall Plan, because when 86% of a state, which is largely agrarian, and you find out that a lot of people live in rural areas, 86% of them are living below the poverty line. It is a great source of concern. And if we were to do a poll across the country, where, I mean, we've seen in recent times a surge in urban-rural migration, you know, creating a real problem in the cities, and also, you know, creating another type of issue in terms of, you know, poverty in the cities. I'm not saying that poverty in the cities, that some people have said, is even worse than poverty in rural areas. At least in rural areas, people have access to farmland, etc. Poverty in the cities, you find people living in dehumanizing conditions. These are the sort of things that leaders who have just been elected should seek to eradicate in their communities. And I hope that we see more of this sort of engagement across different states, not just in Kaduna State. Ayo.
Markwell, can we make it systemic? Can we strengthen the institution? Now, while the governor of Kaduna State is taking ownership of the fact that 83% of the people in Kaduna State are living below the poverty line, it is definitely concerning for him, enough for him to have made an issue of it and invited the chairman to talk. But then what are their challenges? Well, he's also asked them to identify critical areas, critical infrastructure and all those things. Can we just at least start with the Constitution? What does the Constitution require the local government chairman or local government administration or local government council to do? Can we start with that? Can we start with what we have? Can we ensure, can the governors please ensure that the state governments, the local governments do what the Constitution expects them to do and get funded accordingly? Now, I wonder why it has to take the governor for the people, the local government chairmen who are employed by the people to know that they are not doing their jobs the way they ought to do it. Have the local government chairmen themselves all across the nation now, not just in Kaduna State, identified the fact that they need to give attention to the people who live within their communities. I've had a bit of a stint in the local government before, so I know that they have a security council of sorts. They have a group of people who meet for security meetings. The local traditional rulers are there, the community development association chairmen are there, and a host of other people, including the systems, the officials within the local government systems themselves, maybe the policemen or the, what you would call the neighborhood watch now. How are their health institutions in the local government? How are the health institutions in the local government, performing? How well are they doing? Right now, we're recording, I forgot which state was it, Mark, we talked about it yesterday. According to what we have now, 15,000 suspected cases of diphtheria have been discovered. 15,000. So it speaks to some of the fact that perhaps at those very local level, some local government chairmen or some councillors or some health officials, environmental officials in Kaduna, in whichever of these states these things are happening, are not giving attention to what is happening. So while the governor of Kaduna State is taking ownership, can we ask that all 35 other governors will please do the same? Engage and let us know that you are engaging, because at the end of the day, it is about the people. Okay, so can we begin with the institutions that are functioning right there in each of the states, particularly in Kaduna State? Can we begin with the health institution? Can we begin with the security systems in Kaduna State? Can we begin with the education system? They have an educational supervision system in every local government. Can we begin with what we have? Can we look at the infrastructure that is not making things work, soft or hard infrastructure, not making things work, and jumpstart those ones, re-energize them, reactivate them? Let's begin with what we have. Perhaps then we can, okay, we have a shortfall here, and then we can scale it up. Kaduna State, kudos. But can we replicate it all across the country? I'm very sure if people know that their governments are working for them, there will be far less agitation than what we have had in recent time. Chamberlain.
Yeah, well said, guys, because, no matter what the federal government does at their level, I'm not sure it will achieve the desired impact if those states don't pull together. In a commensurate way, I might add. We all know that, yes, as you're always quick to remind us, Ayo, these residents are in states. So states have got to pull together. You'll never stop asking about the plan, template, what do they have? Is it measurable? Is it transparent? Can people see it? Can we access those data? That's what we should plan with. That is how we intend to ensure that we all check them so that no governor will pocket that money that's been released. We'll never stop talking about that just in case they need any telling. And when we start with Daily Trust this morning, you will get to see why all of these matters that we highlight are of huge importance, because even if, to many it may sound like a broken record, take a look at the front page, the lead story of Daily Trust. industries battle for survival as dollar hits 1,155 naira. So, companies relocating to Ghana, retrenching, textile manufacturers is ascribed to them. And then you see employers recommend guided float forex regime. You need to find out what that means. One-way flight ticket may hit 130,000 naira. And then you get to see how to rescue naira, BDC's ex-minister. Of course, everybody will have an opinion because they're all affected one way or the other. Economics is supposed to be basic, supposed to ensure that, look, if the economy doesn't improve, then they've got locusts to ask questions. So, and then about the aviation industry. Mr. Keyamo SAN, Minister of Aviation, you know, his tape is out there now, and when he did say he was going to fight for Nigerian people and ensure that they don't get the short end of the stick in terms of the services provided by airlines. May we remind you, Honorable Minister, that just a few days ago, I think it was yesterday thereabout, very disgraceful scenarios playing out in some of the airports with some airlines, which I imagine the report might have gotten to his table, where passengers not only left they streamed into the tarmac, as a matter of fact, to stop an airline from flying because they thought, if you can't get us to Port Harcourt, where we're headed, then the flight from Lagos won't depart because we've been here ever since before then. Why should they take off? And so it went back and forth. They went onto the tarmac, they disrupted the flight, they couldn't fly.
For real.
Oh yeah, it's that's why sometimes you just look at these things and you feel the global community. So if those things are published all over the place, the world sees it. And how best can you, that tells you how frustrated people are having way beyond up to here. So they need to do something about all of those things. Rein in these services, this sector. It cannot be seen to be above the law. You can't do things that way. Yes, we know that companies and businesses have got to survive, but there are rules. There are rules. Even in life, there are rules. Wherever you are, there are rules. In families, there are rules. Everywhere. They have to comply with it. It's not about just saying you want to make sure they don't survive. No. Basic things have got to be done. Because if that happens and it goes unchecked, what makes us think it will happen to another airline? And then another? And then what will it be next? Sabotage the plane? Because if that plane eventually flies, what if something had been compromised
in the process
while they were not watching?
So, you know, it's now a double-edged sword. I mean, so on the one hand, you know, standing up for your rights as a passenger, but then knowing the manner in which you should stand up for your rights.
It's very thin line.
Some people have been taught that they've learned that lesson the hard way, in the sense that, you know, I think it was someone who was complaining on an aircraft. I heard the story. Complaining very bitterly on an aircraft, about almost aggressively, as a matter of fact, and they were still on the tarmac. And I think somebody was trying to tell him to calm down. And then he was, because the airline had taken off rather late, a little later than they had scheduled. And of course, rightfully so, people were rightfully upset. But that person, you know, took it a notch higher. And even when they had boarded and were about to leave, he was making a lot of noise. And fellow passengers were trying to calm him down. He was refusing to. And after a while, you know, the pilot just went back to they were already moving. The pilot went back to the tarmac, or should I say to the port, and then they had to call in security to remove him off the plane. So people need to know that around aviation, there are very, very stringent security rules. And that's why it's very important for officials to not just escape all of a sudden, because I have also found situations whereby passengers are getting agitated. There's very little explanation as to what exactly is happening or when passengers will fly. And all of a sudden, you see that all of the officials to whom you should lay your complaint have disappeared. There is nobody to talk to. So sometimes the airlines also make it very difficult for passengers to lay their complaints in a very peaceful manner. Then that needs to be looked into. But passengers need to be aware that, you know, you can raise your complaints, but not in a way that compromises the safety and security of other people.
Because if they enforce those rules in the aircraft, the pilot going back, that shows you how strict that sector is.
It is.
We're not helping anybody or trying to do anybody any good by adhering to the rules outside. So it's basic. It's the standard. It's the right thing to do. So if the airlines don't do what they have to do, we've got to face the music. Because they know, pilots know, that if any passengers are really in the plane, the rule applies. It's not an emotional thing. It just applies. So what's good for the goose will be good for the gander. So that is Daily Trust this morning.
I'm looking at The Guardian now, and they're focusing on education. But not just education, but, you know, the infrastructure within our tertiary education, especially that looks after the health and welfare of not just members of staff, but also the students in a university. And look at that. Varsity's sad tales of underfunded, understaffed medical centers. That's the latest story on the front page of The Guardian. It's a big story. Pages 4 and 5 will give you details, and we have all of the pictures of the entrances of our famous universities right there. Sadly, mine is, or shall I say ours, Jimberlin, is one of those included here. But I know it will be no laughing matter when you get to read the story, something that should be of concern to all of us. You know, what are the facilities available looking after children and also members of staff of the university when it is that they need to use the university's medical centers. Something that we should look at. And look at this. Hashtag EndSARS. Activists lament non-implementation of probe panel recommendations. It's a page 6 read for you. So 3 years after, we're still looking at this. Review Nigeria's relations with Israel. Sharia Council tells Tinubu. So that is right there. And if you look at the bottom of this, Tinubu revokes Imam's nomination as FERMA chairman, appoints CEOs for parastatals. Okay, that's the first one. Page 7 is where you find details. You might want to know the why. Let's not jump to conclusions now. Why was his nomination revoked? Operators fault new 6-aircraft fleet rule for startup airlines. All right, so it looks like something's also happening in the aviation sector. And no respite for Nigerians as petrol scarcity bites harder in Abuja, Lagos, others. All right, page 15 is where you find details. We'll leave it there for The Guardian newspapers.
The Daily Independent newspaper this morning is talking about fuel subsidy. And by the way, Mark, what you said about the EndSARS is something very, very concerning. And I'm just hoping that someone is listening right now and we're not cooking up another challenge, because for the activists to be saying that government hasn't done anything about all of the agreement that was made 3 years ago, exactly what does it say about us? Look at the lead story of Daily Independent this morning. Fuel subsidy. Labour warns FG to honor pact or face nationwide strike. Well, this is another warning, because I remember Labour saying not too long ago that there will be no warning. We will just hear an announcement. And I don't think anybody wants that. So please, let's keep interfacing. Extremely important, I believe. At the bottom of that picture on the front page, Supreme Court fixes Monday to hear Atiku's motion on fresh evidence against Tinubu. Find the details continue on the inside pages. Right under that one, FG to shut third mainland bridge 24 hours for repairs. Sincerely, well, for those of you in Lagos who have had reason to go back and forth on the third mainland bridge, I wonder how, especially if you have to do that every day, I wonder how you've coped thus far. Potholes on the third mainland bridge? Gosh. And I also remember the Minister of Works talking about what they call dead load on the bridge. So what's going to happen now so the dead load doesn't weigh on the integrity of the bridge? It's a question they have to answer themselves. Right beside the stories at the bottom of that page, report claiming 94% contested posts await tribunal incorrect. I think that should be contested polls. Await tribunal incorrect. That's subscribed to INEC. Find the details of that story on page 6. Stop panic buying. We have fuel for 30 days, says NNPC. Story is on page 7. But dear NNPC, we can't find them at the fuel station. So what's going on? Someone help us get the word across at least. And as we advocated yesterday, Malcolm repeated it over and over again. Let's know what is happening. We will sympathize, but at least let us know what is happening. There is that word from Ipman and the other marketers that the supply chain is being disrupted one way or the other. NNPC, we hear you, but what is happening? Maybe the details are on page 7 of the Daily Independent this morning. I guess we'll want to find out. That's the Daily Independent newspaper this morning.
Okay, we'll take this Nigeria soon, but let's take a look at New Telegraph now. 891 dismissed. Withdrawn petitions prove 2023 polls credible. Ascribed to INEC. Releases petition status report on elections. Says petitioners mostly challenged eligibility, candidate nomination, not polls conduct. Supreme Court to hear Atiku Obi's appeals against Tinubu's victory Monday. So all eyes will be on them there, won't they?
Yeah.
So
it's gonna be a long day. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Wow. What a day it will be. So, and then you see at the bottom strip here, loss of confidence in judiciary, recipe for anarchy. Chief Judge Soho. Reps urge FG to appoint 9 Supreme Court justices. So this is a matter that is coming through from Chief John Soho here. And so do pay some attention to it. That's no Telegraph this morning.
Okay, so still spoiled for choice, but let's go with this Nigeria now. And you see the elite story right there, focusing on the economy. Nigeria's reserves suffer $717 million drop in September. That's according to the CBN. Naira dips further to 1,152 to the dollar at black market. So page 2 is where you see details there. I guess this will really, I don't want to say infuriate the CBN, but remember what happened with Abuki FX and how they had to, and how Abuki FX shut down because, you know, they kept on saying we have no business with the black market. That's none of our concern. But if...
Is that the ostrich?
Yes, because if the mainstream dailies are quoting what you have on the parallel markets and what you're seeking is a convergence, and you really ignore the, you know, the prices at the parallel market. Convergence of what? It will be the question that we should be asking. Well, it says parallel markets, and what, you know, the parallel lines, do they meet? Big question, really. You also have a number of other stories right there. Soludo, 420 WASP schools in Anambra owned by government. So if you have this acknowledgement, the question is, what do you intend to do about it? Now that we found love, what are we going to do about it? Now that we know, what's the plan? That's the question, Mr. Governor. Tinubu has capacity, political will to deliver dividends of democracy. That's according to Wiki. Held a chat yesterday with journalists and took on quite a number of questions. It'll be very interesting to see how those engagements continue to go, you know, subsequently, and whether it will be broader, you know, right here in the FCT. INEC refutes reports claiming 94% contested posts awaits tribunal. Yeah, so that's a report that the Guardian had issued, and something that had, you know, taken up our own attention as well. And INEC seems to be responding to it. But beyond the response, I mean, would they care to have an engagement? Would they be willing to engage on it as well? I think that's a major question. But we'll leave it there. I mean, the fact that they've even responded to it shows that at least they're listening. So we'll leave it there for this Nigeria.
Faye, Still talking about the Labour FG discussion. FG Labour's deal under threat. NLC accuses Lalong of violation. That story is on page 5. The Vanguard newspaper this morning has that on its lead, as its lead story. Says FG never negotiated in good faith. What does that mean? Vows to resist attempt to foist new leadership on NURTW. Insists government's failure to fully implement agreement will lead to nationwide strike. Fully implement, and we also just spoke about the recommendations of FG's own panel in 2020 that has not been fully implemented 3 years down the line. Something definitely concerning. Right beside the picture on the front page, petrol scarcity. Queues grow longer as depots run dry. Well, DRNNPCL, this is feedback. It's on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper. Find the details right there. Above the nameplate, 2023 polls. Tribunal's dismissal of 712 petitions, withdrawal of 179 validate our conduct. That's ascribed to INEC. Find that the details of that on page 9 of the paper this morning. Now, what do you make of Mr. and Mrs. this morning? Mrs. is boasting to Mr. I came from a family with royal blood, and I'm well bred. Our pedigree is enough collateral anywhere. And Mr. is out of sight. Oh my God, I must be lucky to have married a mate in your family. That's the Vanguard newspaper this morning.
Lucky boy. Okay. All right, take a look at Nigerian Tribune next. Tinubu Supreme Court hears Atiku Obi APM's appeals October 23. Yeah, so of course they will focus on that. And you know, I just kind of have this feeling at the end of the day, whatever decision comes through, look, I think it's natural. It will definitely change a lot of things, either for the winner or for the loser. So for the winner in this case, I think he'll hunker down, then the way he'll approach governments might differ. Decisions might be a little sterner, more different, and haven't cleared this hurdle. Then maybe if the other party wins, of course you know the implication of all of that. But everybody will be watching to see what happens, and it will be a historic moment, whichever way as it will turn out. So we don't have that, do we? Nigerian Tribune.
Nigerian Tribune, okay.
So, and then we also get to see APC, PDP fight over call for Akeredolu's impeachment. That's above the lead story there. Akeredolu, Ogun State, I beg your pardon, Ondo State governor. And, okay, I just wish that the same verb will sustain this fight in terms of economic indices across states, question governors to tell them their yardstick. If the economic indices go south, they need to explain to the people. If there are corruption cases, protest, they will find out, ask questions, they should answer you. If budgets are not implemented, go there, ask questions, they have to answer you. Because they have to. That's why they're there. And that's Tribune this morning.
Well, I'm looking at Daily Times for you, and politics is heavy right there on their front page. Oworori. Oworori.
Oh, dear.
I don't know.
I
believe that one day I'm going to get
careful.
to meet the governor or meet somebody who's speaking and ask
give somebody a mic behind the cameras. They can help us.
Pronounced. And I'm particularly particular about it because I lived in Delta State. So I should know how to pronounce this name, but I have never come across it before. But yeah, Oworori.
Somebody send us a voice note. Let's know how to do
What precisely? Before we get distracted, it's supposed to be the news headline. So Oworori Okowa in Cold War. That's the lead story right there on the front page. So don't miss that. Same thing. Well, same before. You know, a successor and a predecessor, maybe not on good terms. No, that's what we're seeing here. Over commissionerships, and usually that's where it starts. Sharply disagree over candidates for information and justice. The story is, but hey, it is his prerogative. Isn't he the governor?
Well, is there anything wrong in disagreeing? I mean, nothing wrong with that. You don't have to disagree with things. You don't have to agree all the time.
Yes, but what I do not know is why it is that, you know, governors or former governors have to have such a big say in the government of their successors, especially in the choice of commissioners. He's the one going to hold. He's the one that's going to work with them.
I always say, do you know how much I spent for you during your campaign? Do you know what I did? And then if you're the beneficiary or benefactor, you have to keep calm for a while. Then what they normally do is they'll wait. When they get in there, if they're governor, if they win, just gradually, they start doing those things gradually, start shutting themselves gradually, because if they don't too, people will see them as weak and then say, look, we can't neglect this guy again. He's rudderless. So in trying to assert themselves, you get this kind of scenario.
Well, that's what you see right there. That's a lead story. Akpabio tells Tinubu Shetima home truths. You might want to see details. What sort of truths? I know that the Senate is actually holding a retreat in Uyo, the Akwa Ibom state capital, and they're talking, is it? No, not Uyo now. Ikodekwene. I hope I pronounced that right.
Yeah.
Ikodekwene, they're having a retreat there on tax reforms. So that is right there on the front page. And talking about Akwa Ibom State, Ibom Air flights to Ghana, beginning of expansion to West African region. And this might seem, I mean, like some advertorial that I'm doing, but hey, I particularly have a soft spot for this airline. So,
the first rider right there.
The first rider to this one, about companies, what's that?
Companies relocating to Ghana?
No, but so, I mean, if, and maybe this is on the back of my recent journey to Liberia. And I know the kinds of things I heard, the fact that we had to make 3 stops on the way to, before we eventually got to...
From Lagos to Ghana, you don't have to make 3 stops.
From Abuja to
Abuja to Ghana.
Monrovia. Monrovia was my final destination. And I wasn't flying a Nigerian airline. I think the airline is based in Lome. So you must stop at their home country. They had passengers they had passengers to pick in Accra. You stop there, and and I was told that this particular airline, much as they're doing the Lord's work in Africa, this is how terrible flying within Africa can be. What ought to have been just maybe 3-4 hours at the maximum. I don't know how far it is from here to Liberia. It took 12 hours. 12 hours to just get to Liberia. So if we see more of our airlines being strengthened and having the capacity to, move across the continent, it will spur many more Africans to know about their country. Isn't it a shame? And if you ask, many Nigerians would have been to European countries, but know very little about their neighboring countries. And it's it's because of travel within the continent. For instance, if you were to travel to Niger, Niger is just right above us here and occupying the whole of the northern region. I mean, sitting right on top of us. I understand you stop at nothing less than 6 countries before you eventually get to Niger. 12 hours flying in the air, making different stops. Literally, as somebody said, a kabu-kabu in this airspace. So I think that, airlines really need to be encouraged to, if possible, band together. Yes, there is a lot of, how will I put it now, we're having increasing capacity. But I wish that investors will, have frameworks whereby they can come together and make airlines that are really able to compete internationally.
That's why when that narrative, when I read that the president kind of stopped the takeoff of those universities that were approved by the previous government, they were going to stagger their takeoff because they wanted them to concentrate and focus on, I think, change the curriculum or something about production or skill acquisition or technology, something like that. And I thought that is going to be incredibly important because what we unconsciously do to ourselves here is that we don't even encourage mergers and acquisition.
We don't.
We don't have those things.
We don't. So and that affects the strength of businesses, yes.
And we don't even know, when you leave this country, go to your colleagues elsewhere, and you hear them talk about the country, you find out that, oh dear, I think I need to learn more about my country. Because if we don't even start with simple things as learning how to pull together, work together, you won't take that interest to want to know what goes on there. Can I even take a tour go for tourism in another state. There are fantastic places in this country, but we can't pay
I think we have to give kudos to a number of Nigerians who are making a very conscious effort to bring the knowledge of these places to fellow Nigerians. The people who are working in that space, if you're on social media, there are a number of them I can recommend to you, just in case you want to know. And they're doing an amazing job. If you say, oh, it's because of the security situation, you have to ask yourself, how are those ones, braving the security situation and bringing those sort of visuals to us? I believe that really we should be deliberate and intentional. And that ought also to be encouraged by state governments, who should want to market the tourism potential of their own states and invite many more Nigerians. Now that the dollar is, what was that, 1,200, 1,155. Come, see our state. We've got a place for you to relax. There's so much beauty in this land. There's so much to be discovered in this land. But that would only be facilitated if you have airlines, for instance, that are able, after all, almost everybody is building an airport, that are able to fly locally and also fly within, not just the West African sub-region, but also within Africa.
Yeah, so that's really good to see. So we'll hope that we'll pick up on all of those things. But we hope the roads will be fixed so that we can travel by road peacefully, properly furnished as well. Incidentally, that's part of what we'll talk about next, in the next segment here, because we're done with a look at some of the dailies and we're back in just a moment. Stay on with us if you can.
Thank you for staying with us. When was the last time you were on the third Mainland Bridge? I'm not talking about those of you that have to use it every day. I'm talking about those of us who don't have to use it every day. Well, I had reason to use it not too long ago, and it was, to say the least, deplorable. And that is why perhaps the federal government also announced yesterday that the third Mainland Bridge will be closed to traffic from tomorrow, October 21, to Sunday 22nd for repairs. We have the Federal Controller of Works here in Lagos, Engineer Kesha, who will give us an understanding of exactly what we are dealing with here. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Engineer Kesha, what happened to the third Mainland Bridge? I mean, the good number of people will be wondering, hey, we have the Federal Roads Maintenance Agency to ensure that these things don't get as bad as it has become. It's an expressway of sorts, and then this is what we have now. What happened?
Good morning once again, and thank you for having me. You will agree with me that Third Mainland Bridge was long overdue for complete overhauling or maintenance works. What we've been doing in time past is just periodic maintenance, routine maintenance. But what we want to do now is an emergency repairs, complete overhauling of the entire stretch of the carriageway, both bounds, replacing it with fresh asphalt. That's what we want to do now.
Well, yeah, but beside the palliative, whatever that you talked about, and the new thing that you want to do now, I mean, this bridge is what, more than 30 years old now? I mean, a good number of people are calling it what you'd call an eyesore now. I mean, what was supposed to be the maintenance structure? Because I don't think it was planned that it should take so long before the recovery that you want to do now will take place.
You know, what we've been doing, according to funds that has been available, you can't do beyond the funds available to you. Nigeria is a large state. The funds available to Federal Ministry of Works in its entirety will have to be shared by 37 states. So what comes to Lagos has to be shared among all the federal roads in Lagos. So what we have been doing is sectional repairs over the time. We look at the areas that failed, and then we promptly attend to that area. And when you attend to this area this year, you discover that another area is going to come up next year. And that's what we've been doing year in, year out. But now the last administration decided that, okay, let's do more than that. We do sectional repairs of failed sections. But this new administration is saying no, because if we do that, we're going to have what we have been doing before. Next year, another place is going to show up as a failure. So we're saying, okay, let's do complete overhauling of the asphalt overlay. Some of them have been long overdue because we have not done that in the last 30 years. It's just the failures that show up that we have been addressing. Well, so now it's going to be a complete overhauling of all the asphalt layer on both bounds, then replacing it with new ones. So that will give us a relief for the next maybe 10 years.
Okay.
But for Saturday, that's not what we want to do.
Okay.
We've awarded that contract. Federal government has awarded that contract to a contractor already. Okay. Preparatory works, pending when the contractor will move to site because of some elements of repairs that has to be imported. That's why I cannot fully move to site at the moment. Okay. So pending that, we just want to do palliative works to provide relief for the motoring public.
Okay. Let's focus a little on this complete overhaul that you're talking about. Okay. How long is that likely to take?
6 months.
6 months?
Yeah.
And when is it likely to begin?
January, ending of January.
Next year?
Yes, 2024.
Okay.
Because it's going to take the contractor 3 months to import those elements. Okay. Some of the elements that will be needed for the complete repairs. Okay.
So the third mainland bridge is going to be closed for 6 months?
For 6 months,
next year?
Next
completely?
Year. Completely.
What?
One bound will be 3 months. Okay. We'll divert to the other bound. Okay. Once we're done with this bound, we'll bring back traffic to that lane. Okay. Then we'll go back to that another 3 months. Well, and afterwards, we're going to have a very brand new road.
Beautiful. I remember, and I'm sure you're also aware, that your colleague engineer and Minister of Works has been talking a lot about dead load on the bridge. Is that going to be eliminated?
Yes. What the Honourable Minister said is that over the time, we've been just patching. That has accumulated a lot of asphalt on the bridge deck, which was not calculated at the point of design. Okay. So that's why we want to remove all that now, so that the asphalt layer can be uniform. In some places, you have asphalt layer as thick as this. In some places like this. Because what we've been doing is just patching.
Okay, but he also has been talking about using concrete instead of asphalt. Is that been a factor into this new Third Mainland Bridge?
No. Third Mainland Bridge is just the asphalt overlay we're going to do. Okay. The bridge itself is a concrete deck. Okay. It's a concrete deck, which needed just asphalt overlay to flush with the expansion joints so that it is seamless when you're driving. Okay. So it has nothing to do with Third Mainland Bridge.
Now, to the one that is happening tomorrow, where is it happening? And you said, is it going to be both bounds or just one? Just one bound.
The Adeniji bound will be closed to traffic from Saturday 12 midnight to Sunday 12 midnight.
Okay, so it's not the entire stretch of the road?
It is the entire stretch of the road. Okay. To allow the contractor free space to look at all the defective areas and then apply the needed solution to it.
Because, as I said, when you talked about the entire, stretch of the road, because the portion I mentioned is not too far from Oro, the major bus stop.
Yes, it's not only Oro that is bad. That's just the most critical field section. Okay. The other sections of the road too are bad. Okay. Then incoming too, we're likely to touch it, but that may not necessitate closure of that lane. Okay. You just touch it in 1 or 2 places around that midsection of that bridge. That's all we're doing for tomorrow.
Okay. Well, we're talking about federal infrastructure, as you can see, but so a good number of people will be wondering, a lot of work has been done on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, which is just one of the busiest, if not the busiest in Nigeria at the time.
Even in West Africa.
In West Africa, yeah. Good. So what's the stage of completion of the entire stretch of roads on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway?
For ease of construction, given the nature of that road, it's one of the busiest, like I say, or the busiest even in West Africa. So the entire job was divided into 3 phases. And the first phase is the main carriageway, both bounds, phase 1. We decided to concentrate on that. We asked the contractor to drop every other elements of the project and just concentrate on the main carriageway to provide relief for motorists, which is what we have done. So the phase 1 has been completed. So we're going into the phase 2, which comprises of the pedestrian bridges, the flyovers, the interchange at Lotto, then the underpasses in some sections.
Well, the underpasses in which sections? There's been a little bit of concern about the underpass of Kara Bridge, under Kara Bridge.
Oh, Kara Bridge, one section has been done.
Okay.
The other section will be completed. The Magboro will be done. Okay. And then we are going to look at other underpasses.
How long will this take?
We're going to resume very soon. The contractor is just concentrating now on how to drain off water completely from this road. If you go on the road now, you see that they're doing the V-drain in the median, so that any water that comes into the main carriageway can find itself into that V-drain and then go into the culverts, then to the outfall.
Does this have any chance of permanently resolving the road flooding, the flooding of the major highways when it rains? There's been concerns about Otedola Bridge, even the Long Bridge, on some occasions when it rains. That's usually very flooded. Does this stand to solve that problem permanently?
What usually happens on those bridges is the clogging of those weepholes that have been provided as a result of deaths. So our hands are on those weepholes now, and then we have a gang who goes there to go and open them. So we don't envisage any flooding anymore on those bridges.
One of the delays that we understand, caused, one of the things that informed the delays that we heard about concerning the Ibadan end was that conversation with the Oyo State government. How far with that?
It's Oyo and Ogun State government. Okay. Conversations are ongoing. Okay. And for compensation, okay, you will see that some of the bridge structures are in place, but we needed more land for the landing of those infrastructure. Okay. And then we have compensation issues. Okay. So talks are in top gear with the relevant state governments, Ogun and Oyo.
Well, one can safely say that major, if not all, bridges in Lagos are federal roads or bridges. The Kata bridges, the Eko Bridge, and the rest of them. And what are the concerns that you have located in those areas, and how are they being resolved?
You'll agree with me that work is ongoing on Eko Bridge. The contractor is on site. He's working day and night. We just opened 2 sections now of Eko Bridge. The contract is for a 3-year period, and the contractor has since assumed
Mm.
duties, and he's working. We just opened a Pogbon section. We opened Eric Moore section, Ikmori, not too long ago, about 2 weeks ago. So other section, work is ongoing under the bridges. So that one is under award, and the contractor is working. The Kata Bridge too, yes, is being looked into. Very soon there will be award to maintain all the substructure, superstructure of the bridge elements.
Usually the concern is how long will it take? I'm actually very concerned about the maintenance system, such that it doesn't get so bad before we do something about it. Right?
We know. It has not gotten so bad.
Well,
government is very responsive. We are very responsive. Nothing has gotten so bad. The other day, it was in the news that Doma Long had issues. There was no issue. We went there promptly to go and do the assessment. We discovered that there was no issue, just a crack on the parapet wall. The expansion joint was created to be like that. Somebody saw it as a gap and opening. But it's an expansion joint that was created to be like that. A male and female concrete members sitting on one another with a gap for the concrete to expand when there's need for it to do so and to contrast. So there's nothing. And when we went there to inspect, we saw that there were some debts around the bearings. We've cleaned them since. Immediately we deployed contractors there just to do the maintenance work from Oju Elegba to that Nomalong Fadeyi. It has been done.
How long will it take before the Lagos-Badagry Expressway is fully finished?
Lagos-Badagry is about 50% completed. The contractor has gone back to site. He left site for some time due to non-payment of certified works, but now he's back on site. So a bound of the road from Agbara to Badagry roundabout is almost completed. We've done 22 out of 24 kilometers. So it's remaining 2 kilometers on that bound to get to Badagry from Agbara. The contractor, as we speak now, is on site just to complete that 2 kilometers to Badagry and then come back from Badagry with 2 teams to Agbara. Agbara to Badagry. Badagry to Agbara. They will meet in the middle.
Okay.
Thereafter, work will now commence from Agbara and Badagry to Seme.
Okay. My colleague Markwe has a question for you. Markwe, go ahead.
I thank you, Ayo, for asking the question on Lagos-Badagry Expressway. But I had a number of questions. First, with the process, which I already took you up on, but I think you were answering it in respect to the portion which you talked about. I think the one around Oju Elegba, etc. But when you say that you pay attention to maintenance, the question for a number of people is if indeed attention is paid to routine maintenance. Should the third mainland bridge have gotten to the state that it got to before, we're now doing something about it? You get my question? Okay, so I was asking about maintenance, routine maintenance, which I already asked you about with regards to, I think you are responding to bridges around Oju Elegba. But, you say that the Federal Ministry of Works, or would I say FIRMA now, beg your pardon, Federal Ministry of Works pays attention to routine maintenance. The key question is, what exactly are the processes around routine maintenance? Because if you have roads where you have a high volume of cars using those roads, high volume of traffic on those roads, one would think that their routine maintenance should be scheduled a lot earlier. Do you think that the processes that have been put in place are sufficient to look after those roads before they get to where they eventually get to? For instance, the third mainland bridge, which you might need to shut down now, to be able to do palliative work on.
I want to believe that government is very responsive to its responsibilities. Over time, we've been doing maintenance work. FEMA has been doing, Lagos State has been doing on that particular road. So, but what we want to do now is more than maintenance. And that's why it's like it took a lot of time before we got to this stage. So what we intend doing now is emergency repairs, which is a bit more than maintenance. So we've been doing that, but because the maintenance has not been across the entire stretch, it has been as a failure shows that government attend to it. And because the asphalt payment was laid at the same time, but the failures do not occur all at the same time. They occur sectionally over time. So we've been attending to sections that failed, but now we want to attend to the entire stretch, even the sections that has not showed any sign of failure at the moment.
Do you think then that the processes need to be reviewed? That's what I'm asking, considering the level of traffic on some of the critical infrastructure that you have observed.
I think the process, it's okay, but sometimes the point of award and at the point where funds are released to the contractors or where funds are available to do the job, maybe that process needs to be fast-tracked more than what we're doing at the moment.
Okay. Can you give us an example? Do you think that process which you've just outlined, that gap, has had an effect on where we've gotten to with regards to the third mainland bridge?
Federal government is a well-structured establishment, unlike state governments and other establishments. So, and that's how to provide checks and balances. We provide checks and balances by these files moving from one place to the other and everybody having eyes on it. It doesn't just go from one table straight to the other. So that's why sometimes it looks as if it is slow. But it is very efficient, it is working, but we can just do better. That's what I can say for now.
All right, let's take on the issue of asphalt versus concrete. Only yesterday, the House of Representatives, and you can let us know whether, because, excuse me, the new Minister of Works, he's still relatively new, let Nigerians know that henceforth, the Ministry of Works would prefer roads that are going to be constructed to be done in concrete because he believes that they're cheaper, they're stronger, they last longer, etc. But yesterday in the House of Reps, a bill was moved by a member of the House, saying that it doesn't seem that there's been a thorough consideration for what this will mean for existing contracts, what this will mean for even the different types of areas around the country. From your own experience, looking at Lagos, its topography, looking at the type of roads that can work there, etc. I don't know whether you have heard this bill as raised on the floor of the House of Representatives and whether you think that is something that the Federal Ministry of Works will have to, take a second look at.
I don't think I'm in a position to discuss that. But generally speaking, all I can say is that concrete roads are more durable than the asphalt roads. They are more durable. You can see the Apapa Oworo that we have done. It has been designed to last a minimum of 30, 50 years. So it's more durable than the asphalt works. Though at the beginning, it seems to be a bit expensive, but on the long run, because of its maintenance, seemingly maintenance-free policy or approach, on the long run, it is cheaper, it is more durable, and if we invest in it, Nigeria will be better for it.
House of Reps who have raised this particular bill or this motion for consideration?
Our concerns are noted. They are not things that we have not looked at or the ministry has not looked at, but there's need for a change, and we're saying the time for change is now.
All right. Well, Madam, just one more thing from this end. So the timeline you say for this, the third mainland bridge, you said it's this first one is just 24 hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is just palliatives.
Okay.
That we want to do at the moment.
And you said, just to confirm again, that the long-term one you talked about is for 6 months.
It's for 6 months, okay. Yes.
When, again, does the contractor move on site?
For this maintenance, for the main one,
yes,
we're looking at January ending.
Ending of January.
Yes,
but
barring any further delay or any
But you, of course, know that, you know, it's the one road that every time there is a closure of one wing of that road, you know that there is huge traffic in Lagos.
Yes.
What's the plan?
The plan is to use alternative routes.
Okay.
Like the Funshaw-Williams axis and the Muritala Mohammed Way.
Okay.
Those are the plans.
Okay.
We'll make sure that those roads are very motorable, and they are at the moment. So traffic will be diverted there from Bagada, from Ojota.
Okay.
That's what we can say for now.
Well, we have to thank you very much, madam, for being here this morning. It's been quite enlightening, and I'm very sure that Lagosians are looking forward to that, both the palliative and the major rehabilitation that you talked about.
Yes.
Engineer Korede Kesha is Federal Controller of Works in Lagos State. Thank you again for your time today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Sunrise Daily continues in a moment. Do stay with us.
Confidence that only comes from knowing you are fully sorted, to show up for you just when you need a hand. And when retirement comes with all its worries and storms, to ensure we will stand by you and give you the coverage that you deserve. Make the perfect choice. Choose PAL Pensions today.
PAL Pensions, your pal for life. We are passionate about two things in Nigeria. The first is football. The second is our rice. And nobody celebrates like a Nigerian. So, for every goal scored, every mark made, you can be sure to always come back home to rice. Celebrate with Nigerian Premium Big Bowl Rice. Homegrown just like you. Big Bowl Rice. Tasty rice. Nourished you.
Southwood. Fine furnishings for your home and office. Southwood is a Nigerian company dedicated to improving the quality of workplaces and homes. Our space planning and craftsmanship allows you to create a highly customized and comfortable office environment for hardworking and busy executives. Southwood solutions are perfect for today's flexible work cultures. Teamwork, transparency, collaboration. A well-designed and comfortable work environment is proven to increase productivity and morale. Our elegant home furnishings provide the ultimate in comfort and quality. Southwood, furnishings that shape your world. Visit us today at southwoodnigeria.com. Email us at furniture@southwoodnigeria.com or call 0700-FURNITURE.
Papa. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Sit down.
How you doing now?
They can't pay.
I bring your medicine.
Thank you.
Papa, we are Miko.
Miko don't go work. Miko don't join our business.
Oil business?
Yes, sir.
Which company? Papa, Miko don't they follow them go cook oil? That's illegal.
Small oil.
No, it's a crime. That kind of business no good for Miko at all. It is illegal and very dangerous.
What happened?
Wow. Papa, na fire for here with the cook oil. Who just hear stuff from nowhere?
My country people, palava we bunker an illegal refinery dey cause for the community. E too plenty. Our pikin dem we get better future don dey peme. On top, we dey carry our own hand, spoil we land and water. Abeg, no follow the do or sponsor this kind of business. Now Pipeline Infrastructure Nigeria Limited and NNPCL say make we tell you now.
John Matthew. Thank you for joining us on the program this morning, and good morning to you. We're focusing on judiciary. We know a lot of focus will be on them because from Monday, fireworks may begin again. Supreme Court will be hearing the cases of the APC, PDP, I think that of the APM, Labour Party, about the presidential election petition. So a lot of focus will be on them, on that one. But that's not all. That's not the only thing that will get the attention of the judiciary and the people, because we also do know that several election petitions at the governorship level, states are taken into the next stage. For those states that have lost at the first instance, they're taking it a little higher. So at different states, Nasarawa being one of them, several others. We also do know that I think Imo also seeking to hear a particular case from 2019 at the Supreme Court as well about AA candidates. But interestingly, at this retreat going on with members of the National Assembly, Justice John Soho was talking about how easy it is for judiciary, for the people, to lose confidence in the judiciary. And he says if that happens, that will be a recipe for anarchy. And part of the reason he had used was delay in cases. If they stay too long, it could just be in a huge bind. So where do you know? I know you have a healthy or fair knowledge, impression of what the public thinks about the judiciary. So if we could start on that broad note, from your perspective, how do you think the public relates with the judiciary in terms of the kind of confidence they have? Is it has it tanked, or is it still appreciably okay?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. The judiciary has not had it is bad. The impression of the general public, the average man in the judiciary now, is not one that anybody associated with the judiciary can be proud of. The decisions that have been churned out from various courts, particularly the intermediate court, which is the Court of Appeal, are in most instances so conflicting that even as a practitioner, sometimes it is difficult for you to advise your client with clarity as to what you should expect, particularly...
Have you faced that kind of scenario yourself?
Yes, particularly in politically related cases, where you have one court deciding one thing, a few weeks after, you have a complete reversal. For example, the vexed issue about whether you could subpoena a witness to come and testify orally in an election-related matter. There have been various conflicting decisions, which has not brought clarity in that area of the law. And so, more often than not, you find one court taking a particular position, just a few weeks after, another court of coordinated jurisdiction taking another position. So it will be very important for the apex court, which is the Supreme Court, to take firm position in some of these things so that we bring sanity to our jurisprudence, so that a person will know, a lawyer will know that this is the position, this is the advice he can give his lawyer, this is the relative strength and weakness based on decided authorities on that position.
You know, when we hear this case now, Chief Judge Soho cautioning, we've also heard Justice Dongban Mensah caution, we've heard Justice Ariwola caution, we've heard previous CJNs also caution. So that comes across as though they say, look, gentlemen, ladies, gentlemen, judges, justices, you're doing something that may not be right here. So please, we need to rein these things in. That's the message that the public gets. Is that the right assessment?
Yeah, that's quite true. The impression that is given is that justice is for sale. That is the impression that the average man gets, particularly in this season where you have several election-related matters going through the courts. I'm quite pleased that the President but the Court of Appeal has decided that election appeals be heard centrally in two divisions, Lagos and Abuja. I'm sure this decision must have been informed by the need to curb this perception of interference by politicians in the decisions that are going through the court. More often than not, you hear even politicians boasting openly that they already had judges in their pockets and they will already determine, they already know the outcome of the litigations.
How does having those two divisions help?
Well, first and foremost, if the intention, like some of us perceive, is to have a pool so that you limit the certainty of who the panel members are going to be to take any particular decision. Take, for example, appeals from all over the north coming to Abuja. It will be difficult for litigants to know with certainty which members of the panel are going to hear which set of appeals. So this will perhaps limit the incidences of interference. Secondly, it is also possible for monitoring. It makes it easier for monitoring the decisions that are being rendered. And it allows for some level of consistency in the decisions that we expect from this court.
Do you think that at the end of the day, just pardon me, could we be on our way? Because in the same breath too, some lawmakers are also asking that they need to appoint, I think, about 9 judges to ease the burden on the existing ones because it's huge, they say. So could this be probably steps before we then get regional Supreme Courts? Would it be a good idea so that you don't have all kinds of cases going up to the Supreme Court?
I am one person who supports that idea wholeheartedly because the type of cases that should go to the Supreme Court will be cases of fundamental constitutional importance and cases that will set broad precedents for other courts to follow. You can imagine that a Supreme Court will have to deal with a rent-related matter that will travel from a district court, magistrate court, down to the High Court, down to the Court of Appeal, down to the Supreme Court, plugging the docket of their lordships in considering very important matters that comes before them. So I think it will do well for our National Assembly to take a look at the law and set up regional courts, even if they're not setting up for every state, at least regional Supreme Courts, so that some categories of litigations will terminate at those courts. This will reduce the burden. The Supreme Court is presently overburdened, and you can imagine their number is highly depleted, as it were. I think about 11 justices. That court needs to be fully upgraded so that we have more manpower to deal with the litigations that are coming before them.
Well, it was one of the motions that was moved on the floor of the House of Representatives yesterday, the need to ensure that many more Supreme Court judges are, should I say hired now, or judges are moved up, appointed here to the Supreme Court level. And the picture which the lawmaker painted was one of dire need. But, you've raised the example of subpoenas, and you say that, that is one of the areas where there isn't a very clear-cut decision on or stance on the matter of law, which you think that is something that needs to be, straightened up and needs to be clear. People are allowed to be subpoenaed, isn't that correct?
Yes, that's true.
But what exactly is the issue? Is it the fact that they can give their testimony in person, that's orally, or in written form? What precisely is the issue with that?
A subpoena is an order of court. It can command you to either produce documents before the court in a contested litigation, or to produce documents and testify, or to simply come and testify. So once a subpoena is issued, you have to obey it. If you don't, there's a penalty. So the election petition procedure requires that a petitioner should front-load the entire witness depositions of the witnesses he intends to call a trial. But sometimes you as a petitioner would have to subpoena a witness who is from the adversary, who is a respondent in the case. Take, for example, INEC. You need INEC staff to produce certain documents or to come and give evidence in certain instances. You don't expect an INEC staff to come and give you evidence in depositions before you file your case, because they're on the other side. So the only way you can get them to do is for a judge to issue an order for you to be able to get that depositions. And mark you, these judges only come to sit at the time cases have been filed. So how does a petitioner who intends to file a case get a judge to issue a subpoena when the tribunal had not even been constituted? So it will be asking for the impossible to expect a litigant who is a petitioner in an election-related matter to get a witness deposition from his opponent prior to filing his petition. That is why there ought to be exceptions where you are subpoenaing your opponent or you are subpoenaing a witness that was not available to you.
But wait,
to be allowed to come by way of a subpoena.
If I could follow up on that debate, pardon me to jump in.
Yes,
the concept of subpoena.
Yes.
Putting that in consideration, does the question of an unwilling person who's been subpoenaed, does it arise whatsoever?
Absolutely. The entire basis of subpoenaing is because the witness is not willing. He's not available, he's not willing to give you voluntary deposition on oath. That is why you invoke the instrumentality of the quasi-powers of the court to compel him to come and give evidence. And in doing so, you cannot, it will be simply impossible for you to expect that such a witness will come and do a deposition and sign it for you. So what you do is you subpoena him, he appears, he enters the witness box, and you examine it orally. And that's what ought to be. But you find some decisions of court insisting that you must have a witness deposition on oath prior to even filing an election petition. An election petition, for example, under our laws, must be filed within 21 days of the declaration of the results of election. So how do you get INEC, which at that stage is not even willing to cooperate with you, because you are taking them to court against the declaration they made to come and give you a witness deposition for you to front load with your petition. So there must be, our law must take a critical look at this. I'm happy some of the courts have made a distinction and made exceptions. But where a witness is not available to you or is from an adversary and you are suing the institution, not the individual, then of course that exception allows you for a witness to come and give oral testimony. But it's one of the issues that I'm sure will be determined by the Supreme Court in the Article B matter and several other matters are coming up, including, of course, in the Nasarawa State, where I was privileged to participate in the election petition.
It will be interesting to watch. But, I mean, from what we also understand, the situation in Nasarawa State was decided in favor of the litigant, wasn't it?
Yes, absolutely. It was a split decision of 2-1. But, of course, the majority decision is normally the decision of the court. And I think there are appeals already pending. So I probably will not be able to commence further than that because I'm directly in participation.
Okay, well, I'm very concerned about the issue of perception, which you also raised. Because some people will say perception also arises from how the litigants and their lawyers handle whatever, whether they win or they lose, how they handle whatever decision of court has been handed them. If, they take it in good faith and they accept that indeed their Lord Justices looked at the matter on its merit and, threw it out based or gave judgment in favor based on what the law says. Some people will say that, then where is this issue of perception that you say is not very good arising from?
Well, you see, you must situate this in a wider context. Wider context in the sense that the law of political office, the practices that comes with it, makes it a very keenly contested issue. So litigants will do everything to either win or retain their positions. So they are willing to do everything, including trying to compromise justices when matters like that come before them. So nobody expects to lose, particularly the respondents who is already enjoying the seat. So in rare cases, such as happened in Nasarawa, where you have a court upturning the decision by INEC to declare sitting governor re-elected, the stakes are normally very high. Now, the build-up to such cases is also one that comes from the political contest on the field itself. So there are expectations on both sides, and the stakes being very high, everything is done to sabotage the process. In rare cases like occurred in Nasarawa, you have where their lordships have had the courage to insist on deciding on the basis of the facts that were presented before them. More often than not, people are taken by surprise because that is viewed as the exception rather than the norm. And so it is not surprising that a lot of interest comes into it. But let me advise here that politicians must understand that you can win and you can lose. And you must accept that you can lose. So when you have lost in an election, in court, particularly when there is avenue for further redress by way of appeals, that is the right option that should be exercised. People should refrain from making unguarded statements that hits up the policy, that disparage their lordships, particularly those who are in a situation that cannot join issues with them.
The question of when you go to court, then winners are announced there. Many people just find that it's discouraging for a lot of electorates who would rather have the winners announced at the collation centers. So what would you recommend? I know that they have to, it depends on the prayers that come before them and such other matters. But is it that there's nothing we can do to ensure that we, as much as possible from the court, steer them back to go so that the people can be the ones to, not just decide, but to be seen to have been the ones deciding who becomes a governor or member of the National Assembly or whatsoever?
Well, let me take you a little bit back to what I think ought to have, or what I think can be done better. There has been some substantial improvement in our electoral process. And you will find that litigations that came before the court this time around were not basically about the fights in the field, whether elections took place or whether elections did not take place, ballot box snatching, and those incidences have been reduced because of the introduction of technology in our electoral process. But we forget that there's always a human element. You can do elections clean in the field, everybody's satisfied with the voting, with the accreditation and everything. Then somebody sits who is supposed to do the collation, decides to inflate figures. So this problem is basically, you'll find from different
officials.
Yes.
INEC officials.
The major problem you have in this election cycle is with INEC. So particularly the ad hoc staff who were recruited to do the collations in various centers. Strange figures appear which are completely different from what took place in the field. And this thing will continue unless there are consequences for it. People who are identifiable, who can be identified, coming up with figures contrary to what is presented to them, there must be punishment for this. Unless we do that, whatever kind of technology we bring in our electoral process, whatever kind of amendment we make to our laws, we will always have the human element sabotaging it.
I can't remember how many ad hoc staff INEC recruited this last time, but I think there were millions.
Yeah.
And so...
Millions?
Wasn't it?
I don't
how many?
Up to millions.
Well,
no,
virtually all their collation officers.
Were ad hoc staff?
Yes, virtually all their collation officers from the ward levels are ad hoc staff. Ward level, various level, up to declaration. At the final declaration, most of them are people of high repute, as high as vice chancellors of universities. So it becomes very worrying that these people are saddled with the figures in black and white. They announce something else.
I'm trying to remember the scenario where we asked an official of INEC at the time, too, about the similar question of holding ad hoc staffs accountable to ensure that these kind of things don't happen. Because if INEC officials themselves are above board or they do what they can in line with the laws, and then ad hoc staff who know, I will only be there for a few times, they think that, well, the law cannot catch up with them. So I think, if I remember properly, officials of INEC at the time spoke about their challenge, the limitations, funding to ensure that these kind of things are done, because there has to be, I think that's a huge component. But in your suggestion, what would you suggest we do to ensure that this doesn't happen? Is it with funding INEC to ensure that whatever needs to be done, either for training, or is it about amending our laws again to see or make sure that, look, whoever ad hoc staff is, because even if you do it now and then you go on to another location much later, or you leave that job of being an ad hoc staff to something else, you can still be recalled to answer questions.
As it is now, our penal laws are replete with punishment for this behavior. They're just not being enforced. That is the problem. They're just not being enforced. First, no matter the amount of improvement you do in the electoral process, no matter the amendment of the laws you do, if you are not willing to punish for bad behavior, then people are encouraged to repeat it. This is the time that our courts need to, our law enforcement agencies need to enforce these laws so that people know that there will be punishment for bad behavior. And I think since we have started the process of improving involving technology in our electoral process, it will be important if we go a step further to consider the aspect of electronic voting. It's been done it's not foolproof, but it will further enhance the process of elections. When people know that you vote electronically, your vote is counted automatically, that will help. But like I keep on saying, the human element is also a major factor. We have been assured in the last elections that the election results will be posted in real time. As soon as elections are concluded at polling units, the results will be uploaded in the IRF. But in the last presidential election, we saw what happened. The kind of figures, the kind of pictures, the kind of different things that were uploaded in the IRF. And our courts are now even saying that it's no longer mandatory for INEC to upload those results in the IRF. I think it's a step backward. We need to be able to take a look at this to make the process transparent enough. And one other thing that I must add at this stage, unless we make public office less attractive, we will not be able to tame a kind of fierce contest for electoral positions.
Yeah. I'm just saying here, I just checked now, over 1.4 million.
Yeah, because if you add
staff.
If you add the what they call, well, you said millions. If you add the polling unit agents, that's the youth corps members who were deployed.
That's a lot.
But he was talking more collation. So collation will be less than that, because if you look at the fact that you have, say, even in Kaduna, 225 words or thereabout, they're not up to, in the thousands, and you have 36 states. How many collation officers you need. But if you add all the polling agents, youth corps members who were deployed, etc., yes, you will certainly get 1.4 million. So that's not exactly out of reach. I'm looking at, now I'm almost distracted with the question I was going to ask you. I have taken note of some very, very important takeaways which you have shared with regards to our laws and what needs to change, and the sort of attitude that we also need to bear, especially to politicians, amongst politicians, towards the court of law. Would you say that these attitudes are changing? With regards to, with elections, we have been told, you have also highlighted that one of the reasons why, it's fiercely contested is because of the perks of office. They're really things that you cannot ignore, and the enormous powers that accrue to these particular offices. Do you think that there's anything else we can do? One, in the area of attitude. Do you also think that we can rejig the system to have this winner takes all? Some people will say it's not exactly working for us. Some sort of power sharing arrangement. Do you think that this could have any effect on what we see with regards to the litigious nature of our election?
Well, that would take quite a lot. In my view, the presidential system we practice is, in my honest assessment, not working well for us. Yes, the presidential system we're dealing with, not working well for us. The situation where you have, look at the retinue of aides of perhaps, a governor. There are some governors who appointed 300 aides for virtually nothing. And the law allows them to do so.
So what system can work for us then?
I think Nigeria should really consider quite seriously about going back to parliamentary system, where you have elected representatives of the people coming to parliament, and within the parliament, a government is formed. The majority form the government there, and parliamentarians sit on part-time. Parliamentarians sit on part-time. People, you want to go to parliament, you should be having something doing. You are gainfully employing something else. Go to represent your people, to make laws. You should be paid for sitting allowances. If these things are done, it will reduce the allure of office. People will go for service, go to serve, and not to enrich yourself. So I think we need to change the system. We also need to consider the humongous cost of governance. I was hoping that President Tinubu was going to be different. I can see now for the first time we're having this number of enlarged cabinet. What are they going to be doing? Take, for example, Ministry of Police Affairs. You have a police council, you have an inspector general of police, then you have a minister for police, then you have a minister of state for police. Come on. What are their functions? What are they going to be doing other than just providing jobs for patronage? So I think we really need to, if we're asking the citizenry to tighten their belt, it should come from government. I was reading quite recently about the vehicles the National Assembly members were buying for themselves. In this situation, with the kind of hunger that I see daily on the street. Did you read
the reason they gave?
There can't be any other reason other than the fact that it is not an acceptable expenditure. And even if they needed to do something like that, why not patronize Innocent? Why not encourage local manufacture? Why should they go and bring that kind of thing, wave it in the face? It will reach a time in this country, if we are not careful, that even those who have earned their money legitimately cannot drive any fancy car in certain environments. I come from Nasarawa State. Sometimes when I pass to Maraba to go to my village in Nasarawa, in the evenings, the amount of thugs that are ready to mob you on the road there is scary.
Well, you use a flashy car then, that's why.
Well, not necessarily, but even if I do, I have been in private legal practice all my life.
But they don't know that.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Would it matter if you use Innocent then?
They are in danger. No, what I'm saying about the Innocent motors is that if we patronize a local manufacturer like this, we ensure that the money is in the economy.
Okay, we understand that. Mr. John Matthew, thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go over now to Lagos, probably when we return in just a moment. Stay on with us.
Southwood. Fine furnishings for your home and office. Southwood is a Nigerian company dedicated to improving the quality of workplaces and homes. Our space planning and craftsmanship allows you to create a highly customized and comfortable office environment for hardworking and busy executives. Southwood solutions are perfect for today's flexible work cultures. Teamwork, transparency, collaboration. A well-designed and comfortable work environment is proven to increase productivity and morale. Our elegant home furnishings provide the ultimate in comfort and quality. Southwood, furnishings that shape your world. Visit us today at southwoodnigeria.com. Email us at furniture@southwoodnigeria.com or call 0700-FURNITURE.
Discover Lipton's flavorful and balanced taste. We pick fine quality tea leaves from selected tea gardens around the world to give you Lipton Yellow Label's flavorful and balanced taste in every sip.
We are passionate about two things in Nigeria. The first is football. The second is our rice. And nobody celebrates like a Nigerian. So, for every goal scored, every mark made, you can be sure to always come back home to rice. Celebrate with Nigerian Premium Big Bowl Rice. Homegrown just like you. Big Bowl Rice. Tasty rice. Nourished you.
The Duchess International Hospital caters to every aspect of the family's health needs. A one-stop shop for maternity and child health services, emergency medicine and critical care, medical and surgical subspecialties, dental and eye care, and a range of other subspecialties and services, all available at a single location right here in the heart of Ikeja. And it really doesn't matter if you're paying out of pocket using your HMO or private insurance. We focus completely on providing that world-class affordable healthcare for all the family at all times.
Thank you for staying with us. Well, residents of Arepo and a number of other communities like that have been groaning over what's suddenly caught up with them. Most of these residents who reside in the lowland areas of these communities were caught unawares because they woke up suddenly and found the sight of water spread around their premises 2-3 days ago. My colleague, Kelly Giga, is right here, right now, at one of those communities to give us an update. Kelly, where are you and what's the update?
Well, Ayo, we are here on the Long Bridge area of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, and look, it doesn't look too good over here, and that's because there is a massive flooding in this area. Residents of this area on Tuesday morning woke up to the sight of this unprecedented increase in the volume of water around their communities. And perhaps you're wondering what communities we're referring to. We're referring to communities such as the Arepo area, the Isheri area, the Warewa area, popularly known as Wawa area, along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. But perhaps you're watching this live feeds now. Take a look at that particular house or building over there. It has been submerged totally by water. We're not sure if that's where the building was before now or if it was carried away by water. But what we can tell you is that these communities have had to, in the past 3-4 days, had to go through a whole lot because some of them have been displaced by this flooding. We understand that it's a sudden release of the Oyo Dam, which is causing this particular flooding in this area. Perhaps we should also do a bit of a background or history about what we are talking about. On this day in history, in 2010, former President Goodluck Jonathan, in company of the former governor of Ogun State, Benga Daniel, and former governor of Lagos State, Babatunde Fashola, had an assessment tour of the flooding in this border community. And 13 years ago, they had said that engineers were going to work and ensure that they put an end to this flooding. But 13 years after, the story is the same. Residents in this area, Sherry Estate, Sherry North Estate, the Wawa area, the Kara area as well, they experience this twice every year. Twice every year, somewhere around June and July, and somewhere around September and October. And that's why we have this flood here, Ayo.
Oh, Kelly, I can't wait to get quickly to the Commissioner for Environment in Ogun State to give us an assessment of this. And I'm almost certain that you are going to be going to one or two other places, particularly where people really reside, around the OPIC area, any other area that we have people. That way, perhaps we might be able to get a picture and put it on air for the government of Ogun State in particular to see. But thank you so much for your reporting, Kelly. Let me quickly bring on the Commissioner for Environment in Ogun State, Mr. Ola Oresanya. Thank you for joining us this morning. We're aware that you made a trip in the course of the week to this environment, OPIC in particular. Can you give us what your assessment was and how come, as my colleague just mentioned there, 13 years after, this issue is still persistent?
Well, thank you very much. And let me first of all start by sympathizing with our people who are exposed to this flooding within that environment, the Judiciary area. Yes, I was around there 2 days ago just to look at the impact of some of the interventions that we did, and also to reawaken the community to the fact that we released a kind of an advisory in April this year, especially for people living around the floodplains of the Ogun River. And in line with what NIMET and the Hydrological Department, Hydrological Agency of Nigeria gave. So that, we did a simulation that within about anybody within the 50 to 100 meters by the bank of the river should leave those areas, because this period of the year, there's going to be that heavy volume of water from rainfall. And apart from that, we are going to have the rise in the sea level. What most people are not conscious of is that this period of the year, there's always a rise in the sea level from the lagoon. So the lagoon is locked up. You cannot discharge into the sea as it is right now. And we have, as at 3 days ago, the sea level rise in Lagos is about 0.85 meters. And it's going to rise to almost 1.3 meters this weekend. And that means even the water coming from inland that's supposed to discharge into the lagoon cannot. And this is going to happen to all the coastal towns in Nigeria, not just Lagos alone. All the coastal towns in Nigeria, we have this lockdown, and that is going to flow in. That's my observation. And for the estates, we have a relief there. What we had before now, 4 years ago, is not what we have in that estate. As of 2 days ago, when I visited the area, we still have a lot of dry land that we could not even approach about 4 years ago.
Well, the challenge really is to ask the question, what happened or what are the causes? Is it just the dam spill, the release of water from the Oyon Dam that is responsible for this? Or there are other reasons that are unknown?
Like I said, it's not just the dam, all right? I've been following the release of water from the dam, and I have the details almost on daily basis, all right? And what the dam has been, at yesterday, at Oyon Dam, were there, only 2 of the 4 gates are open. So that tells you the dam in itself is not really threatened as we talk right now. The threatening level for the dam is about 63 meters above sea level. The dam is at about 61.5 above the sea level, and only 2 gates are open. though the volume of water released, yes, is high, okay, but not the real reason why that is coming up. There are three reasons right now. You have the dam. The dam must release water. There's a peak of water storage at the dam, which is a normal thing. And has been releasing that water not just now. Since August, Oyo Dam has been releasing over 500 million cubic meter on daily basis from the dam. All right. The month of August, we have not on a monthly basis, about over 500 cubic meters was released in August, September, and even as at October, they've not released up to 500 cubic meters, 500 million cubic meters as we speak. So, but it is higher than the normal dry season. Now, that is Oyo Dam was released water anyway. Now, the other reason, like I've told you, it is the high rainfall that was predicted this year. When Nime talked, most of us cannot relate to it until we start seeing the problem now. This is a coastal flooding area. I mean, coastal flooding that we must experience. Any coastal town will experience the coastal flooding at this period of the year. So people who are settled around the coastal settlements, coastal communities, are going to be threatened. And we've told them to move out of the place. Now, like I said, the rise in the sea level rise is one of the critical things that will cause the coastal flooding, because the Ogun River cannot discharge steadily into the lagoon right now. So we have a lockdown, which will start receding by in the next 2-3 days anyway. Tomorrow, Saturday, is going to be the peak of it. And from any time from Sunday next week, we start seeing the release. The third reason is the saturation from the heavy rainfall. We already have most of the soil in these low-lying areas. They are saturated. There is almost zero population that you can have. And most of these areas are built up. There's almost zero population that you have in these areas as we speak right now.
Okay.
So water must retain on the surface.
Well, Mr. Reza, how about drainage problems? A group of researchers in 2020 identified not just the Oyo Dam spill, but as well as drainage problems and poor refuse disposal as contributory reasons for the flooding in these areas.
No, I totally disagree. I'm sure the residents of that area will tell you they have a very good waste management services in those areas right now. I was there 2 days ago. I moved around everywhere there. There's no refuse hanging anywhere there. There is no refuse hanging anywhere there. All right? And the drainage, yes, we dredge. There's an Oparo River, which is a tributary to the Ogun River. We promised we're going to dredge it. We did the dredging because that's a stormwater channel. But that channel is meant for stormwater. The drainage can only address the issue of stormwater, not the issue of coastal flooding. Coastal flooding, if you have the best drainage in the world, when you have a rise in sea level, water will lock down even in that super drainage channel. So that is a natural hydraulic system. There is just nothing you can do about it. Have the best in the world, it will lock down. Now, what is the solution? Is it a helpless situation? No, it's not a helpless situation. The permanent solution is to develop dike, a dike, all right, around the riverbank. If we must inhabit those areas, we have to create a higher volume, we create a higher elevation where water can be retained at a higher level in those areas. And that is a medium-term to long-term agenda. And also to dredge the Ogun River, which is a major ecological project. So whatever the Ogun State is supposed to do has been done to dredge the Oparo River, which we did. And I'm sure many of the people in the community will attest to this fact that we did the dredging. And it gave a relief during the early rainy season. But for this season, there is just nothing you can. It's not about drainage, it's about the hydraulics, natural hydraulics.
Okay. Chamberlain.
We understand that, I hope you can hear me though. We understand that this Oyo Dam has about 9 megawatts power generation capacity. Now, with the new electricity law, which says states can now generate, distribute, and transmit power, what is the state doing about it?
Thank you for awakening this issue, and I want to assure you that Ogun State is ready. We've passed a law that will enable us to partner with the people that can actually look into areas to generate power for us. So it's an asset Ogun State is ready to tap into. It's a federal asset, but we're going to tap into it and partner with the federal government to make sure that we make the best of that dam. It's an asset for us.
Okay, so if and when that happens, do you have can you give us an idea of what to expect when that comes to fruition?
I'm sure we're going to do a big launch about it. We're going to make noise about it, and you will know. And look out very soon. We're going to get that very soon.
Okay, so what is it that residents around that area have to do? Because time and again, there are just different things that we hear. Sometimes there's a conversation from governments, secular, asking them to move to higher ground, and then they wonder, how do we move to higher ground? What has been provided for this higher ground? Are we to move permanently out of place? So what kind of conversation usually happens? What preparations or what should they be doing, both government and the people now?
Well, the first thing is to, I moved around with the community leaders 2 days ago, like I said, and areas, the intervention we suggested for some of the people they've done, the road level, the infrastructure, they have to elevate, okay? If you cannot move, then you live at a higher level. It's either you move yourself to higher ground or you create a height around that area. For the Judiciary area, you can see that there is a bridge across that area. That bridge is at about 5 meters above the datum there. So if you must exist in that area, and you must be at almost like about 2.5 to 3 meters above ground level. The road must be at that level, and your house must be at the level of about 3 meters. There is no way that you cannot inhabit. You just have to develop the engineering solution to make you inhabit the place. And we've done the experiment in that area. Some areas there, they're not feeling the impact of the flood. If you go into some of the areas within the river valley, within the valley, the estates there, they are as dry as it can be, all right? But the people by the side of the river itself, until we have a dike. The dike is the real solution, or you create a height. For those who want to move out of the place, we made provision for them. We have hostels within many of the churches around the area. We've talked to them. They are ready to give the hostel to us. In fact, they've handed the hostel to us to use so that people can move to those hostels, all right? And the state emergency agency, all right, the State Emergency Management Agency, the SEPA, is available, is ready. And we are working with NEMA also. NEMA is on ground to support us so that people who really want to move, we give a toll-free line they can call. We'll come there. We will move them freely. They don't even have to pay for it. The state is ready. That's why I went around 2 days ago to see how many of the people are in distress who are ready to move. We're ready to move them to the camps that are available.
Mr. Resanya, well, just one quick one before we go on this program this morning. Well, there was a report last year that the Lagos State government is proposing that the proposed fourth mainland bridge is going to significantly reduce, if not eliminate, the challenge of flooding in these areas that you mentioned. Is that an opinion or a sentiment that the Ogun State government shares as well?
Yes, we're working with Lagos State government on this, and that underscores the creation of the dike, like I told you. By the time the bridge is coming, we are also to create embankment around that area. It can be a rigid embankment, or it can be a kind of a soft embankment that can be at a higher level, so that the capacity of the Ogun River to withstand even the kind of a tidal fluctuation like this will be improved. So the bridge, yes, the bridge is going to support that, and it's part of the thing on the table to mitigate the resettlement in that area. It's a fact.
In the meantime, there are shanties and sanitary concerns around the underpass of Kara Bridge. We had a conversation with the Federal Controller of Works in Lagos this morning, and she was talking about the work being done to rehabilitate the underpass. at Kara Bridge. What's the Ogun State government doing in that regard as well? I'm pretty sure that it's probably one of those places that you passed when you came around.
Yeah. Exactly. We have a very, very high concern. That's the prime location. That's the gateway into the gateway state itself. So it's very, very important for us. But we can't go ahead of the Federal Ministry of Work. We have to be patient for them to finish the road. Then we take over the beautification. So our beautification program has to start by relocating some of the shanties, demolishing them, and making sure that we relocate our people who are there sleeping under the bridge. I was there. I moved around the underpass and I saw it. But we can't move ahead of the Federal Ministry of Works. We have to wait for them to finish all the work there. Then we will move in as a state to tidy up the whole thing. So we are really anxious for the cleanup of the area.
Ola Oresoya, Commissioner for Environment, Ogun State, thank you so much for joining us this morning from your office in Abeokuta.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's the show this morning, but not without looking at your own contribution to the program. Let's begin with your comments, Sam. Sam Ero writes on the state of federal roads, says the state of federal roads across the country is deplorable and distressing to many road users. On the Benin bypass, there are many monstrous potholes or drum holes. Many travelers spend days on the road, same on the Benin, Auchi, Benin Wari roads, and so on. It is obvious that the current structures for maintaining these roads are not working. These roads should be privatized. Nigerians will not mind paying a token toll as long as the roads are in top shape. These will no doubt improve productivity and reduce our vehicle maintenance costs.
That mail is taken now. Hussein from Surulere, here's your view. You say, talking about elections and petitions, we will reduce the burden on our courts when lawyers that file frivolous election petitions and cases on behalf of politicians receive appropriate sanctions for wasting the time of the courts. INEC will also help in this regard by displaying a high level of transparency and fairness in the conduct of subsequent elections in the country. The governorship elections in Imo, Kogi, and Bayelsa states will prove us right or wrong.
Well, Festus Akimboewa makes a return, and he's talking about, he says, proportional representation must now be included in our electoral process. It will go a long way to reduce the irregularities and violence associated with our election. There are great people with great minds in all our political parties who are eager to contribute to the development of our country. There must be a way to accommodate them, he says. All right, so there you go. That is the show today. We do thank you all for watching. As always, what a week it's been, actually. So we'll see you next week. I'm Chamberlain Oso. Goodbye.
Well, do join us later this evening for a very interesting edition of Hard Copy. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Mao Kweogun.
And join us tomorrow morning for Sunrise. I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day.
Our website, channelstv.com, has more information on our top stories and others. Subscribe and watch Channels Television's live stream on YouTube and other social media platforms using your mobile device.